Of course, I think communication will always remain the most important skill for any team leader or any manager.
Hello and a very warm welcome to Great Principles. I am Seema Choria. I bring to you another legendary figure from the world of Indian academia. Faith is the word that feels the light when the dawn is still dark. When a young man and an educator quotes Rabindranath Tagore's words, we know this comes from a strong belief education is one of the mightiest tools humans have, and the ability to learn is the only source that shall help us face challenges of the new world. My guest today is a born leader, adept at various skills, and mind you, at a very young age. I invite Mr. Arpit Panjwani, director at Ma Anandmai Memorial School, Raiwala, Uttarakhand, to share his ideologies and vision as an educator. Welcome to Great Principles, sir. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I'm truly delighted to be here, and of course, to be using an adjective like legendary is quite humbling by itself in the beginning. I'm only finding my feet as of now and only learning through an experience. But I'm truly delighted to be here, and I really thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, sir. And once again, welcome here. And thank you for giving us this opportunity to have a conversation with you. So, sir, beginning with, once upon a time, you were a student who received education at some of the finest institutions. And, you have been mentored by some of the awe-inspiring facilitators too. And your grandfather's ideals were as, the guiding beacons for you. So I would want you to take us to your early days and share us your vision and why you chose to become as an educator, to be an educator.
Well, thank you, ma'am. A part of my answer you've already summarized in some way because I've been incredibly privileged to be taught and facilitated by some extremely experienced, inspiring, and at the same time some well-versed educators who gave me the right guidance and motivation to take up this education and take this up as a challenge. Just to, of course, correct you here, I am still a student in a lot of ways, still learning because I don't predominantly come from, say, an education background of, a facilitator. So all of what I've learned here that I try and impart to the kids is what I've learned in my limited experience. But having said that, yes, going back to my own educational experience, yes, I did have the incredible privilege of being educated at Welham Boys School in my middle school, and then obviously at the Doon School, which I take tremendous pride in, which is where during my formative years I was really influenced on the value of education. And I mean, I was grateful to God Almighty, and of course, always grateful to my parents for sending me to such an institution. So why I say this is because the Doon School had one of the foremost roles into shaping me as a human being going forward, making me realize the importance of being someone who is civic conscious, of being someone who believes in nation building and creating impact not only at the regional level but also at the national level. So we all know that education is a medium that, of course, can create momentous change in our society, in the mindsets of people, and bring about revolutions of sorts. So I did believe that, I mean, my grandfather tried it in a lot of ways in a rural area, in a sort of remote setting, and it was somewhat a sort of endeavor which I believe was the only one that he could not achieve to the fullest as per his capabilities. So I thought, yes, after he passed away for his heavenly abode, I really did want to give him a tribute and take this up as a challenge to myself, and also give back to society in certain ways where I can use education as a sort of medium where we in whichever ways possible, whether through education or sports, this right here at this village. So yes, my early days were in Dehradun, and thereafter I went for my graduation to SRCC New Delhi, and I've done my MBA from IE Business School in Madrid. And I use all those learnings to bring about changes and impact at this very grassroots here in Uttarakhand.
Amazing, sir. You have a wonderful journey. And I think the biggest takeaway from your journey for my viewers is choose wisely your child's school, because as sir mentioned, the seed for value education was sown in his school days itself. The Doon school has a great impact on him, on what he is today as a person. So our childhood days really matters. Our surroundings, our schools play a significant role on what we would be as an adult. So choose your schools wisely, and sir is a true example, a living example of what impact the school
And
days
just
have on
one
us.
thing I forgot to add. Sure. And just one thing I forgot to add in terms of, bringing about my school education. So the Doon School's first headmaster, Mr. A. E. Foot, said something which has remained ingrained on the school walls and through, our ecosystem, which is that, going to the Doon School should be an aristocracy of service, not one of privilege. So when you go to such an institution, they make you realize that, service to society is an integral part of your being in our society. And which is what continues to drive and motivate me.
Absolutely, sir. There is no joy, bigger than giving back. So this need to be ingrained in our children too. They all need to learn to give back to the society. So on this wonderful note of giving back, we move ahead to our next question to you. Sir, what are the interpersonal skills a leader should possess to break all barriers and gain their team's confidence? Because it's all about the team. A person cannot, work in silos. A teamwork is a
Absolutely,
secret to
absolutely.
success.
Like they say, unless until it's a circus, a single wheel cannot move. Even on a bicycle, you need two wheels. So in a similar way, there's no one person who can deliver the job. Even consultants don't do it by themselves. They need people around them, rally around them to deliver. So I feel most importantly, especially in today's time, you need transparency, which is very important. To be transparent and open with respect to your own challenges and what you want and what you expect out of your team members. Besides that, I think it is very important to possess that empathy to really understand the problems, go deep into it, and like they say, walk into someone's shoes. So unless until you're empathetic enough, you won't realize why the job is not done. Besides, of course, I think communication will always remain the most important skill for any team leader or any manager. You need to be an effective communicator to mold, motivate, and inspire your team members. And I believe it is truly, truly important, and it is always understated of leading by example. So if you really want your team members to do a certain thing, to be turning up on time, or to be maintaining a certain discipline in their work order and process, you need to lead by example. So those are the skill sets or mindsets I believe would be very, very important, notwithstanding which sector or which role you're in, but it's important, all pervading everywhere across industries.
Absolutely, sir. Very rightly said.
Summarize
That
the
we would
words
like you
once
to
again.
repeat again.
I'll just summarize the words again. It was transparency, empathy, communication, and leading by example.
All right. So these are the few magic traits that everyone needs to have. That is transparency, as sir mentioned. Your uh, leading by example and following, having the confidence in your team. That is what is required today. So to all my viewers, teamwork is the result. Even schools, organization, every sector needs teamwork. You cannot perform anything unless you don't have your team with you. So going ahead, sir, today's world is all very, very competitive, and it's all about everyone talking, okay, so for my this work I have received this award. And award somehow, recognitions matters, because it gives us motivation that yes, we have done something that is recognized by others. So in your opinion, are awards advantages to the leader and community they work for?
Yes, ma'am. In some ways, if they are genuine, let me sum it up with a rider that if they are genuine and not paid for, obviously they bring about validation, and obviously they bring about credibility and encouragement for one's work. But it's a sort of deja vu, I mean, just today you're asking me this question, and I got a call from some university or some representative in the morning saying that we want to give you a doctorate PhD. You only need to come to Habitat Center in New Delhi to receive that doctorate, and only need to pay 1 lakh rupees. So I said, what have I done to receive this doctorate, and how many people get it? And I know enough people who already have got such a doctorate. Like I know they've done no PhD, no years, and they are about 70 years of age now. I mean, at their age to be doing that PhD is virtually sort of impossible. So as long as these awards are not bought and not paid for, and are in some ways justified of your work, I think they are valid encouragement. Otherwise, I think it's just social media propaganda and marketing, nothing more than that.
Very rightly said, sir. An award which is earned by your hard work, that is something actually motivates you and sets a benchmark for you to be better,
Absolutely.
from your own self. So very wonderfully
And
explained by sir here.
you feel good about doing it sort of from some good credible organizations. Otherwise, there are so many companies which run this as a business anyway.
Yeah, that's really sad, and very unfortunate on the part that everything is becoming commercialized these days. Even awards are bought. So that's
Absolutely.
really sad. So going ahead, sir. Sir, we all, like, you had your grandfather, and you're going ahead on his footsteps, trying to do what he couldn't achieve, and trying to go ahead and achieve much more and set a benchmark for. So we all have someone to look up to. So I would like to know, who is your inspiration, who helps you make this journey like walking in a park.
Well, I think two people, most certainly, both my parents, my mom and my dad, both very, very hardworking, very committed, very sincere individuals, and both absolutely spot on in terms of their time management and personal life management. I think I really look up to him. I look up to both of them. I don't say it enough, but I think I can use your platform to sort of, bring out my feelings and emotions, to really convey my heartfelt gratitude for always day in day out, inspiring me with the littlest of things and changes they make in their lives, and not just changes, the sacrifices. And I think we all know how many sacrifices our parents literally do. So yes, I think there is no one person or any second person I would even bring about close when it comes to seeing my parents, the way they worked hard and make the sacrifices to make sure the kind of education and the kind of exposure we get. And those are things that they don't normally say, but one can always feel and know it, that you've been so privileged and somewhat born with, say, a golden spoon, simply because your parents have worked hard, your grandparents have worked hard, and we all owe it to them.
Absolutely, sir, and very rightly said that we all don't even take in a minute and appreciate our parents at times. We don't even tell them that, yes, you mean our world to us. And I really actually like your point where you said that they just keep doing, and we don't even say thanks for that, and we all say, "Okay, you have done this." So feeling gratitude for this, it's the biggest thing.
Hopefully my mother gets this message through your platform.
Sure, sir, sure, sir. And I'm sure this joy, when I would really like when my daughter says that, Mama, you mean the world to me and you're doing so much for me. I really like that when she says that. And this joy I can feel being a mother, that how it feels when your children come and say to you that I'm this because you had sacrificed so much for me. So this is a very beautiful, wonderful thought here. So to all my viewers, sir's greatest inspiration and motivation is his parents, who has been doing everything in their capacity to build him what he is today. So this brings to me to the very interesting segment of the show, which is called Rapid Fire Round. Sir, here you have to answer in one word only or maximum a sentence. Right, sir? So to all my viewers, get
No,
ready
ma'am.
to.
I've seen Coffee with Karan, ma'am. So I know what you want.
All right, great. So to all my viewers, get up. We are going to get some fun facts known here and revealed. So number one question to you. You spend your recreational time indulging in
Watching tennis.
watching tennis. So do you play too?
Just a little bit, ma'am. But one of my major role models and inspiration in terms of sports is Roger Federer.
All right. Going ahead to our next question. Your top three hobbies are.
Cricket, table tennis, and photography.
All right. So we have a photographer, a cricket lover, and a tennis lover here, a table tennis lover here. Wonderful. Your favorite food is?
Pizza.
Pizza. All right. So sir is a pizza lover. Great. So is it the Indian type of pizza, or you like the authentic Italian one?
No, ma'am. I like the authentic Italian with a lot of oregano, with a lot of seasonings, chili flakes, and I like olives and jalapenos and everything possible.
Wonderful. So sir's favorite food is this pizza. So now we also know that you like to sing. So we would like to hear a few lines of your favorite song.
But I don't think I'll sing a favorite song, but again, I'll go back to my school days and probably sing one of our assembly songs, which kind of keep bringing back older memories. So it's a little couplet written by a famous poet, Iqbal, who was a freedom fighter as well. So it goes like, लब पे आती है दुआ बन के तमन्ना मेरी, जिंदगी शम्मा की सूरत हो खुदाया मेरी, दूर दुनिया का मेरे दम से अंधेरा हो जाए, दूर दुनिया का मेरे दम से अंधेरा हो जाए, हर जगह मेरे चमकने से उजाला हो जाए, लब पे आती है दुआ बन के तमन्ना मेरी.
Wow,
Yes, so I
wonderful.
mean it's a long song, but I just sung the basics of it.
Beautifully sung. You have a wonderful voice, sir. And I remember, the school songs, the school anthems, they all are designed with a vision so that the children know where the education is going to take us, where this school
Yeah,
is going, the school wants us to be.
particular one has a very deep, significant meaning that you should always aspire to create change and all that, and through your own presence bring about some sort of change and inspiration in society.
Yeah, wonderful song, that also talks about let your light shine, just shine and others get inspired through it. Going ahead, sir, why do Indian not play tennis as a competitive sport?
Why do Indian players don't play tennis as a competitive
Yeah, why do Indians not play?
not
Yeah,
play?
yeah,
Why do
as
they
much
not
as
play?
we
Yes,
see the
that's
love for
the right
cricket and
question.
hockey.
Yes, why do they
Yeah,
not play? So multiple reasons, ma'am, and very simple. We all know them. Lack of facilities. We don't have so many tennis courts all over. Schools don't have them. There aren't so many academies in any case. Number two, there isn't as much money in a sport like tennis or maybe my sport, which was table tennis. I mean, cricket has all the money. Even the other sports now, slowly the things are changing, but they're not as
yeah,
fast. Number three, because of the physiques, tennis is a very demanding sport. You need to be absolutely fit. The amount of fat you consume and all of that has to be very low. It's not like cricket where you can just stand and hit the ball. So it's not like that. Tennis is extremely demanding. And number four, tennis as a sport is expensive in any case. Even if you start playing tennis on your own, the cost of racket and balls by itself, I mean, any sport which is expensive isn't particularly a mass game in our country. So yeah, I think those are the reasons. With certain other reasons as well, lack of coaching facilities. The coaches aren't so many.
yeah. Absolutely valid explanation here for this. Yes, this all is very much relevant. And when we correlate it, it gives us the right answer for this. Going ahead, sir, if time travel was possible, which past dignitary would you meet?
If time travel was possible, which dignitary would I meet? I think Roger Federer. I think, I
Yeah,
mean, he's someone who's really, really inspired and moved me. Not just the way he plays. Now, that's not why I really adore and sort of respect Roger Federer. You see the person's whole aura and conduct and the way with which he handles himself. He's just a crowd puller in all ways. And the dignity and grace with which he faces even loss. I mean, it's very important for each one of us to make students also understand today that failure is a regular part of your life, and you learn through experiences and failures. And having won 20 grand slams, Roger Federer has also lost a lot of games, but he's lost everything with a lot of grace and sportsman spirit. And the world has never, in all these matches that he's played, they've never seen him angry or see him smashing the racket on the court or lose his cool or show any kind of temper. He's just so happy, and he just, I mean, he's just so friendly and approachable. Those are the kind of things and traits that one must have, and you only aspire to emulate. So for certain reasons, I've always wanted to meet somebody like Roger Federer through time travel or through some connect where I can sit and really understand from him how he conducts himself with such finesse.
wonderful. So it was really amazing to know, sir, in this segment. So going ahead, your school is called Ma Anandamai. So what is the story behind this name?
Ma'am, like I said, I do this through a lot of passion and dedication simply because my grandfather was one of my foremost inspirations who I believe, achieved so much in his life, even notwithstanding all the difficulties. So as the sort of tale has it, and how I have been told that my grandfather managed to achieve so much through divine Ma's blessings. And Ma Anandmai was one of India's foremost saints and sort of, worldly gurus who came and settled in a place like Haridwar from Bangladesh, okay, erstwhile Bangladesh,
Mhm.
which was part of Indian Bengal back in the day. So my granddad became very close to her, and she guided, mentored my grandfather and changed his way of life and perception and all of that, through which, a lot of changes that he brought about in his personal and professional life. He sort of, achieved all the successes, and he always attributed those successes to Ma's guidance. So Ma Anandmai used to come and do her chanting and sadhana and mourn in this particular village where the school is situated. So before Ma passed away for her heavenly abode in 1982, she had somewhat remarked that at certain day and age, this village will become very productive and meaningful, and it will go on to serve the needy and sort of create some service element and all that. So she had a lot of followers, including, our former Prime Minister Indira Gandhi and Gulzari Lal Nanda and so on. So my grandfather got in touch with a lot of her followers, and in the year 1985, he dedicated this school as a memorial to Divine Ma, because she used to come and stay here and do all this sadhana and practice. And my grandfather always felt that there is no better way to pay tribute to Ma than, of course, bring about education in her memory. So that is how the school started. It was named after her, and not for a second. I have never had the intention or ideology. Even sometimes people make a mistake that this is some sort of a religious institution. No, there is no religious practices. We are absolutely secular. We don't do any sort of favoritism or things like that. So it was a memorial to Ma, and it still continues like that, even though we do not preach or practice anything religious here per se.
So school has been founded with this beautiful vision of, dedicating and to it to this Ma Anandmai. Wonderful, sir. So what was the vision of your grandfather when he established this school, and what is your vision today?
So, I mean, of course, both the visions on a larger macro perspective come together and become one. But I think my grandfather's vision at the beginning of it in 1985 was just to do some sort of rural social service. I mean, he wanted to absolutely bring about the poorest of poor and do some sort of charity and service. I think my endeavor on a macro level is almost the same, to bring about I mean, people who are underserved or people who are needy, and serve them. But how it is changed over time is only that I aspire to deliver excellent contemporary education, which is skill oriented, where we can deliver to children what is needed tomorrow, so that they can become independent and they can become sort of change agents. They can become leaders who can go on to solve the world problems, which is why we take the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals in our curriculum very seriously. So while serving the needy, I always believe that it is important to bring about the best in every child, which is why I changed the sort of tagline or vision of the school, which now today says discovering and developing each child's interests and gifts. So as long as you don't bring the best out of any child, you will not make sure that your entire purpose is served. And when at the end of the day, as educators, we are able to bring out that spark in every child, then automatically we bring about a larger change in our society, and everybody goes on to become something which really matters or is meaningful to the entire planet.
Very rightly said, sir. And I totally agree with your grandfather that, the biggest charity one can do is to educate a child, because once you educate that child, you educate his entire generations, the coming generations. And as you said, now you're focusing on developing the skills. So along with education, when the child gets the right skills, that is when he can survive further and ensure that he earns the right livelihood for his entire family. So the school has been...
May also just add, ma'am, it's also important for today as educators for us to realize that the problems of tomorrow are going to be different, and we need to prepare children and citizens or responsible citizens and leaders who are prepared for those challenges. So that is somewhat my vision, that I mean, we should always not just aim at completing the syllabus or not just aim at board exams, but also make conscientious, responsible citizens who can be prepared for tomorrow and also solve crises of tomorrow.
Absolutely, sir. So, that is the true goal of education in true sense, that I think going further, the person who can read and write is not illiterate. A person will be called illiterate who cannot be a better citizen, who cannot, earn a decent livelihood for his family, who doesn't have empathy in them. So those will be named as this, because, reading and writing is basic skill that everyone in this generation are learning. Those who are able to are here, right? So going ahead, sir, this brings me to the last question of the show, which is also called viewer's choice question. So, sir, our viewers have shared us this question: why do school leaders shy away from mentioning their hobbies, especially sports, on their CVs, resumes, and professional pages?
I mean, obviously, very interesting question. Never heard this before, and never quite anticipated this. And I can't exactly know that they actually don't write it. I'm only getting to know through your viewers and yourself that they don't write it. But one reason I feel, and that might be a tad bit immature of me to believe so, that school leaders already have so much written down, and there's little space to, write down these things that they consider trivial. But jokes apart, I think, at the end of the day, we don't give as much importance to these things as a society, which is probably why, everybody just lists down academic achievements and conferences attended and papers published, that sports just gets fizzled out. And having been a sportsman at certain level myself, I feel very sad that we don't give that due importance, and we don't give, all these activities and sort of, extracurriculars as much importance. And unfortunately, that is also the case, when you're applying to colleges in India for undergraduates. I come from SRCC. You still get admission only on the basis of marks. I mean, that is just absolutely apathetic. I mean, you need to consider that the child has played some sports. He or she has devoted some times to extracurriculars like music, art, dramatics, debating, etc. So there are obviously ECA quotas, but why don't we look at the overall picture, like, as a holistic perspective? And like, we continue to say that we want to give holistic education, but when the child goes to college, they don't want to consider the holistic education. So that is why somewhat the entire model fails, and then parents keep worrying about marks and marks and marks. So which is why I think school leaders also don't write about their interest in photography or their interest in music, because ultimately, the person reading it also doesn't care two hoots about it.
Well, sir, I think things are changing now. When we apply for job these days in corporate
Yeah, yeah.
sector, yeah, they are now no more bothered what rank I got in my examinations or where did I rank in my school level. They want to understand how very creative I am, how very innovative I am, what were my other interests. So we are seeing this change, and with NEP coming in, this I think we all will expect this.
Absolutely. And just to sum it up, ma'am, I mean, as a young interviewer, sometimes when I sit, even I want to know what other things you can do besides just completing the curriculum. Whether you can help out with music, or you can help out with debating, or you can help out with sports. And that was the beauty of having been to a boarding school where every teacher was required to do something besides just academics. So you had no option. And that is why, I believe that boarding schools bring out the best in every student. I mean, which day schools sometimes are not able to, that you have to participate in activities, and even teachers have to do the likewise.
Right. Rightly said, sir. And going further, these days I'm interviewing so many school leaders, and everyone wants that, apart from teaching curriculum, teachers should be focusing on other activities where the child might be interesting. Now we have many school leaders coming up with the concept of having a mentor teacher for every child, who knows in and out about the child. So beautiful things are coming up these days, and we are expecting great changes in education with leaders like you coming in and sharing their vision, sharing their journey. I hope soon we'll be seeing, the interest in the series too.
Absolutely, ma'am. Thank you very much for your kind words. I really appreciate that. And I do hope through this interview, there are other people who obviously take on the mantle and initiative and continue to do the good work, and of course, keep inspiring me too. I mean, while some of my teachers, not some, but most of them are doing some inspirational work, I'm also very glad and fortunate to see that on a larger scale, things are absolutely changing, across the industry.
Absolutely, sir. So thank you so much, sir, for your time. We really appreciate your wise words you share with us, and we are very privileged to have you here. Thank you.